Well, here's the inside 49ers scoop on how their rookies are doing. It's been a long time coming here, 2 weeks since our most recent live stream. Hello again. Welcome in. Yes, I am still in Europe, back at the base here in Europe in Prague. So I figured since I'm at the base, since we're not moving around, we can go live. We can stream for the first time in 2 weeks. If you've missed any of the uploads, all that footage, all the, flying around all those towns. If you've missed any of those, make sure you watch that. Make sure you read up at the San Francisco Standard. I was able to write this on a flight yesterday back here to the Czech Republic. How are the 49ers rookies doing? A comprehensive look as training camp approaches. So we've got everybody from Isaiah Neyor, who seems to have been the talk of the town over the course of the past 2 or 3 days after George Kittle was talking about him during a podcast appearance, saying that he was covering 9.5 yards in 2 strides. Isaiah Neyor, obviously a physical freak. If he can display some consistency route running, catching the football, then Kyle Shanahan can have a lot of fun incorporating him into the offense. But we're going to talk about everybody from Isaiah Neyor to the man up on the screen. That is Mykel Williams, pick number 11 for the 49ers, first rounder, who I thought, we didn't get to see all too much of him, and he tweaked his hamstring. They shut him down there toward the end of the spring program. Doesn't really matter. You can't develop much as a defensive lineman before the pads come on. So with Mykel, all I wanted to see was the size, and we got a little bit of a bonus on top of the size. Jake Hutchinson tweeted this, and we could scroll down. Why don't we watch it? I think I could get this up on the screen. The accidental steamroll from Mykel Williams is absolutely something else. That's a poor staffer that finds himself on the ground. Now, I mean, it's not that serious, okay, this right here. This is not like, okay, Mykel Williams has done this to a staffer and the 49ers have the next Reggie White on their hands. It's not that deep, but what we had always talked about with Mykel Williams was length to power. He definitely has the length, and he definitely has power. That's why he might have been the best edge setter in college football. And I'm not going to replay it all too many times. Poor staffer ends up on the ground. But when we talk about length to power, first round pick, number 11 in the NFL draft, 49ers so excited about him setting the edge for them in this 2025 season, fixing or helping fix a run defense that was almost hopelessly bad last year. Well, you see him at his first practice. That was from rookie minicamp. You see him on the field, and you see him steamrolling a staffer when he's not even running full speed in a way that a staffer doesn't normally fly backwards. It's just one of those things that's cool to see, especially since nobody got hurt. If the staffer's hurt, then all of a sudden you're like, okay, well, everybody slow down. We're not going to have a chuckle at this play at that poor guy's expense. But he got right back up and everything was good. And I thought that it was a small glimpse into Mykel Williams and, maybe 20% of the potential length to power that he might be able to deliver. So all that I needed to see from Mykel over the course of the spring program was just how much does he have in that wingspan. That's all I needed to see from Alfred Collins too. I didn't need to see him practice, and he didn't practice during OTAs because the pads aren't even on yet. We'll see Alfred Collins during training camp, and Alfred Collins has a wingspan of over 7 feet. Mykel Williams is just a little bit shorter than that. So the top 2 picks of this 49ers draft, they check out because we have seen the length that they bring to the table. Mykel Williams is going to set a good edge for the 49ers if he can do what he did in college, and that is use that length to assert power, and use that length to assert power by keeping offensive linemen at bay. We talk about linemen and tackles, especially in the NFL, having 33, 34-inch arm length, because that's what it takes to keep defensive linemen away from them. And if you have the arm length to keep somebody away from you, well, then that means that you can win the geometry wars. You can win the physics battle, right, with the guy across from you because he's not getting in good position to push you back. So we talk about offensive tackles keeping edge rushers at bay. I think the reverse is also something that's worth talking about. And the reverse is, well, can Mykel Williams, can Alfred Collins keep offensive linemen from engaging them? And can they play the battle, the pass rushing or the run stopping battle on their own terms? And I think in the case of both Mykel and Alfred Collins, we've seen the frames, we've seen the measurements, and we can confidently say that they have what it physically takes, build wise, to do what they need to do at the NFL level. Now it's just a question of actually getting it done. And we weren't going to be able to answer that second question until training camp anyway, because OTAs, again, this is non-padded, non-contact kind of stuff. The minute that there's real contact in training camp or in rookie mini camp or in OTAs or rookie mini camp, training camp is where there actually is contact. But the minute that you see actual contact in OTAs or rookie mini camp, Kyle Shanahan stands to get fined $100,000. That's what happened in 2021 when Deommodore Lenoir was a rookie trying to exact some press coverage. Anyway, the Mike and I guess the poor staffer that we saw in that video with Mykel Williams, he's not protected by those rules. He had the blocking dummy. Mykel was able to run him over anyway. 49ers want to see that against actual NFL competition moving forward. Anyway, here you go. Here's the article up on the Standard. I have the link in the description for you. We're going to go through all 18 of the rookies. We are live for the first time in a couple weeks. I know we're going through the offseason right now, and it's the slower part of the offseason. I get it, but these guys right now are away from the team facility by and large. They're going to be back on July 15th, a week ahead of veterans. The veterans have to report on July 22nd. And the work that the rookies are putting in right now is some of the most important work that they'll do of their NFL careers, because you do not want to start your career behind the proverbial 8 ball. You want to make sure that you are on solid ground, or at least as solid as it can be, entering your first training camp, which is known to be an overwhelming experience for a lot of players. And that's just about anybody. I think their first 2 weeks of training camp, their head's going to be spinning. So very, very important for the rookies to be ready physically as they enter that July 15th report date. And this is what the 40 days away. That's why they're so important. So we're going to talk about all these guys. Mykel is up there on the screen. I'm going to open this up to questions. I can also present you the 49ers 90-man roster. We've got it right here. The 90-man roster includes all of the rookies shaded in green. The rookies shaded. This will really help you make sense of where all these guys are. The one that is currently shaded in this pink injury color is Curtis Rourke, who's the quarterback out of Indiana. I actually expect him to redshirt this year. By that, I mean, I think the 49ers are going to put Curtis Rourke on injured reserve before the season starts, before the cut down happens. And if that is the case, or if it happens at the time of the cut down, then Curtis Rourke will not play for them in 2025, but they will maintain contractual control. So last time I did a video similar to this, we looked at essentially 17 rookies. But now that we've talked about Curtis Rourke, we can say that we're talking about 18 rookies today. Jordan James, the running back, Corey Kiner, also in that same room. Watkins, Neyor, Bergen. Of course, the comments from George Kittle on Isaiah Neyor were eye-opening the other day. Shows that the 49ers are paying really close attention to that undrafted free agent and the athleticism that he brings to the table. Then there is Connor Colby along the offensive line, along with Drew Moss. We're not going to be able to get a firmer read on both of those guys until the pads come on at training camp. CJ West, Alfred Collins, Mykel Williams. I mentioned CJ in the headline to this video. And see, all these offensive linemen and defensive linemen, the guys up in the trenches, I know that they don't have the pads on, and I know that they can't get involved in real mano-a-mano contact until those pads do come on. But I can look at physiques. And in the case of Alfred Collins and Mykel Williams, we were talking about that arm length. We saw some glimpses of that power from Mykel Williams. But in the case of CJ West, I'm not going to be talking about arm length because he definitely doesn't score all too high in that regard. But I can talk about how strong he looks, how chiseled he is, because I can compare it to somebody from the past who played a similar position for the 49ers. and that was DJ Jones. And what I wrote up in the article on the San Francisco Standard is that, to me, it already seems really clear that CJ West is well ahead of where DJ Jones was as a rookie for the 49ers. That was back in 2017. DJ was a 6th round pick out of Ole Miss. CJ West is a 3rd round pick for the 49ers, or 4th round pick for the 49ers, coming out of Indiana. So drafted a little bit higher, but physically looks like he's in better shape. DJ had to run the stadium steps. He had to do a lot over the course of his first 2 years in the NFL to be ready for his 2019 season breakout. I think the 49ers are going to be counting on CJ West to deliver for them earlier. And I mean, he was able to single-handedly take over Indiana's run defense in his one season there last year and make them one of the teams whom, it was a defense that was really feared. Like, other college offenses did not want to run up the middle against Indiana. It was one of the 5 lowest A-gap run rates in all of college football last year, was the run rate of Indiana's opponents. And I think the reason for that is absolutely simple, and it's very, very rooted in CJ West. So between West, the guy that you have up on the screen there, in Mykel Williams, Alfred Collins, who was a good run defender at Texas, who also, by the way, uses his long arms. He's used them to bat down a lot of passes. He had 7 or 8 of those breakups last year. But between all 3 of those guys, the 49ers have the body types in place to make this run defense a whole lot better. And I can say with confidence, from being out there at practice, I'm giving you guys kind of an insider's glimpse into things. CJ looks like he's in better shape. He's more chiseled than DJ Jones was as a rookie. And it took DJ that 2-season stretch. The 3rd season is when he really broke out for the 49ers. It took DJ a little bit longer. I think CJ West is going to be more of a ready-made NFL player. We talk about the arm strength. We can talk about brute force. We can talk about his ability to just anchor at the one technique. But anything that's going to set you above the fray in the NFL, it's going to make you more than just a guy in the NFL, is your technical nuance, your refinement at defensive line. And you can ask Nick Bosa about this. It's about your hands. It's not just about your hand violence. It's about your hand technique. It's about the ability to combine violence with the right angles, because hand combat along the defensive line ends up determining which athlete is in better position to then apply the full force of their body moving forward. So the hands meet first, and then the rest of the bodies crash against each other up on the defensive line. And the reason that Nick Bosa is such a good player is he's able to disable offensive linemen's hands. And it's not just because he's swatting as hard as he can. He knows the tricks. It's like a lightsaber battle, right? You're having to deliver in this chess match against the opposing offensive lineman. You're delivering, the wide series of moves, and it's moves and counter moves. And you're trying to obviously always end up on top in this situation, but you're doing so while the other side is anticipating what you might bring. CJ West, yes, he's strong. He's got extremely violent hands, but I would offer that he's also got some polished hands. I don't think that, and he's playing a different position as Nick Bosa, and I'm never going to say that he's as polished as Nick Bosa when it comes to some of that hand movement, but he was polished enough to come in and transform a run defense almost single-handedly in Indiana last year in just one season. And we've seen some of the violent hands on display already at the 49ers spring program. Again, there's not real body-on-body contact at spring practice, so you're not seeing these offensive linemen and these defensive linemen truly go to war there, but you are seeing some of the hand drills, and you're seeing some of the hand speed. And I think one of the really promising initial indicators for CJ West is the hand violence that he's been able to play with. Anyway, I'm ready for some questions. We're going to go through all 18 of these guys, so I'm sure some of you have questions about guys whom I haven't talked about yet The article's up on the San Francisco Standard. It's available there. I just opened up the comment section and I already saw people saying, "Oh, let's talk about Brandon Ayuk and all this and all that." Let's not talk about Brandon Ayuk. I made a whole video or 2 videos about him, and then earlier in the offseason, I made videos about him talking about how it basically would be impossible for the 49ers to trade him. I know there's still people talking about trying to trade Brandon Ayuk. That is just nonsense. That's drivel. It's out there to get clicks, and it's out there to fill the gap when you don't have anything substantive to talk about. But we've got plenty of substantive stuff to talk about. I've been in Europe making a video a day. I think all of them have been substantive, and now we can sit back here and go live for quite a bit and answer some of your questions. So please, let's not focus on Brandon Ayuk. Let's focus on some of these 49ers rookies, and let's focus on realistic discussion surrounding this football team. Joseph saying, how about that guy Moody? I love the fact that he'll be the kicker for the 49ers going forward. Well, unless he loses the competition to Greg Joseph. I saw Moody comment, and I bet I'm going to try to focus on the rookie questions here in the chat. Art says, how do the 49ers make the tough decisions on who to sneak onto the practice squad? Well, first they have to collect as much intelligence as possible over training camp. And then they also, 49ers have scouting like of the rest of the league. So they have pro personnel scouts and they have college personnel scouts. And the pro personnel scouts, what they're going to do is they're watching other training camps. They're watching reports coming out of elsewhere. So they know what other teams might need, where other teams are a little bit deficient, where other teams are strong. They will obviously cross-reference their intel with all the college scouting intel. This is why the 49ers scout every player that they can, because even if they don't pick them, they'll have an idea of that player on other teams. And they can then really deduce an educated appraisal and an educated projection of what players that they cut or put on waivers might be appealing to other teams. It's obviously a strategy game. It's obviously a game of uncertainty, but it's one that if you collect enough intel, I think you could play decently well. So then you figure out who you can expose to waivers, who you probably don't want to expose to waivers. And then the realities of your own roster are also going to push you in certain directions here. Sometimes you have too many talented veterans and you're trying to win a Super Bowl, and you're just going to have to let somebody go. Right? You're going to have to see if they make it through waivers before re-signing them to your practice squad. So it's not always a cut and dried thing. In fact, I would say it's rarely a cut and dried situation, but you try to do the best you can with your pro scouting combined with your college scouting intel, combined with the needs of your roster to determine who goes to the practice squad or who's waived, and you try to bring back to the practice squad and whom you protect. In the case of the quarterback, Curtis Rourke, if he is still recovering from his ACL surgery, which I'm sure he still will be at the cut down, well, you don't have to deal with exposing him to waivers if you just put him on IR. Yes, he can't return for 2025, but he was going to redshirt this season anyway. It's no harm, no foul. The benefit of not waiving a player and re-signing him to the practice squad extends beyond the ability of other teams trying to poach him. But if somebody like Curtis Rourke is just put on IR, the 49ers get to maintain his 4-year rookie contract. If you waive a player, you terminate the contract. If you terminate the contract, even if you bring him back, well, the practice squad is only a 1-year commitment and he can get poached off the practice squad at any time. But if you bring him back just as a signee, it's only going to be a 3-year deal. So rookies for whom you use draft picks, they're under contract for 4 years, which can be invaluable. We just saw it happen with pick number 262 and Brock Purdy. So the 49ers are going to have all of these considerations taken into account when they do make decisions regarding this roster. All right. Here's one of a question about Upton Stout. Do we expect Upton Stout to play at nickel or safety? We expect him to play at nickel. Safety for Upton Stout wouldn't make a whole lot of sense for me because he is one of the strongest DBs that we've seen coming out of the draft in quite a while. So safety, I think he's going to be too far away from the line of scrimmage to take advantage of his strength. He put up 21 reps on the bench press, which was the most of any defensive back at the NFL scouting combine. So nickelback is essentially an extension of linebacker. You take a linebacker off the field to put the nickel back in. You're a nickel about 65 to 70% of the time. Ideally, teams will run against you when you're in your base package with a third linebacker, but we know that teams run in all kinds of different situations, so they're probably going to run out of passing formations, and that means they're going to run the football with your nickel back in the game. If your nickel back is a liability against the run, if you can't play close to the box, shed blockers, well, then teams are just going to run all the time out of passing formations, and you're going to be in a whole world of trouble. So, in the case of Upton Stout, the 49ers absolutely believe that he's going to be a nickelback. They love the strength that he brings to the table. They think that he can give them that versatility at a very, very important position. Thomas is asking 3 rookie D-line starters. 1981, the last time they used their first 5 picks on defensive players, 49ers had 3 rookie DB starters. I would offer in response to this that it is a lot harder for a team's defensive line to be comprised of rookies than the secondary because there's more strength, more physical strength needed for the D-line. But right now, I do have CJ West, Alfred Collins, and Mykel Williams all listed as first stringers in my depth chart. So, what does that mean? Well, I don't think it necessarily means that by week 1, this is going to be the case. I think you've got guys like Kevin Gibbons, Jordan Elliott, Yetur Gross-Matos on this defensive line to help ease the transition for some of the rookies. But I would say that my depth chart is an idealized version of how things might play out from the 49ers point of view. I'm trying to convey 49ers strategy to you. And I think that if things do go swimmingly well for the 49ers in 2025, CJ West will be their first string 1 technique. Alfred Collins will be their first string 3 technique. Mykel Williams will be the edge setter in base situations opposite Nick Bosa. Then in pass rushing situations, CJ West comes off the field. Mykel Williams moves inside. Yetur Gross-Matos takes the edge position of Mykel Williams, which had been vacated for the move inside. So it is possible that by the end of this season, you do see 3 rookie D-line starters. In fact, I think that would be an ideal situation for the 49ers. I'm just not sure if it's going to happen immediately for San Francisco to open this 2025 season. It's just tough. I mean, you've got to get used to that NFL man strength, right? And defensive linemen, even the dominant ones in college, there's going to be an adjustment period to dealing with the strength that is displayed in the NFL. Now, Mordecai did not get hurt. This is a question from Kim. That did not happen. Mordecai is healthy. Rourke is the one that's hurt because he played all of last season on a torn ACL, had ACL surgery after Indiana's college football playoff run. Likely won't be healthy enough to play until some point of this 2025 season, which is why I think it's likely that the 49ers just redshirt him and put him on IR. I think they were planning to do that when they drafted him. They think they got some real value. They think that Rourke would have gone much higher in the draft if not for the ACL issue. He ended up being picked in the 7th round. With so many rookies starting at key positions, well, they haven't earned those jobs yet, by the way, so I wouldn't assume that. Will the 49ers be competitive this season? I think if you got young guys who are good, you have a better chance of being competitive than a team that doesn't have young guys who are good. This is a young man's league. The reason the 49ers ended up not being competitive by the end of last season is because they were too old and too broken down. Now, things happen along the way to push them into that position. They still had, when healthy, a very talented roster, but they needed to get younger. So when you look at the depth chart here, and I know Green, our rookie starters. Just appraise this in the light of relativity, okay? The 49ers last season had a tremendously terrible defense. I don't know how to put that any more bluntly, but their defense sucked in 2024. The run defense ranked number 29. Assuming that they can ultimately start three rookies, three of their first four draft picks along that defensive line, how could things possibly get worse for the 49ers? Number 29 is already, let's just call it what it is. It's bottom barrel. How could things get worse than Devondre Campbell walking out on you at the linebacker position? They've got Nick Martin. They've got D. Winters competing there. The secondary, that's where I think they're strongest returning, especially at the cornerback position. They're going to try to bolster that with Upton Stout, with Trey Brown. We'll see how they slot in. Safety is a little bit of a concern for me right now just because of the injuries to Jair Brown and Malik Mustafa. But obviously, they signed veterans in Richie Grant and Jason Pinnock to help rise the potential, to help, really improve the potential floor of that unit at the safety position. But how can things possibly get worse than where we saw them end for the 49ers defense in 2024? Because they were too old, they were too broken down, they were too injured. They didn't seem hungry enough on the defensive side of the ball to close last season. So all this concern about young players, great. I think that's what turns this around for the 49ers is these young. That's why they decided to do what they did this offseason. They didn't want to keep on beating the same horse to death. They said, out with the old, let's bring in the new. The old didn't work last year. Let's bring in the new. I think that the logic for the 49ers was simple and it is sound. Be bummed if Colby and Moss get poached off the practice squad like Kingston. Kingston was a sixth-round pick whom the 49ers waived. To be honest, though, Kingston didn't play for Carolina last year, and Carolina didn't have a very good team. So, Jared Kingston, yes, very athletic, but if he was a world beater, I think he'd already be playing at the NFL level. The 49ers can hope that Connor Colby follows the path of somebody like Dominic Pooney. They can hope that Moss follows the path of somebody like Dominic Pooney and turns into an instant contributor. If they see that from either of these two guys during training camp, I can guarantee you that they will not be exposed to waivers. If Upton Stout is playing nickel, who would be the DB2? Well, let me illustrate this for you right now. Upton Stout is playing nickel. He's right here. I have him as the starting nickel for now. DB2 is Renardo Green, who earned that last year, played really well. DB1 is Diameter Lenore. Now, there's also Trey Brown, who has started in the past for the Seattle Seahawks. Cannot discount what Trey Brown might be able to bring to the table. Let's go. More questions. Esley thinks that Colby's going to be starting at left guard by week 6. I just think that Colby, this is Connor Colby, 7th round pick out of Iowa. I think given his pedigree at Iowa, given the way that they develop run blockers, I think they develop NFL ready run blockers. I do think he's on the inside track to be able to perform during an actual game for the 49ers sooner rather than later. Now, will the opportunity present itself? Because I think that Ben Barch shouldn't be slept on. I think Ben Barch is going to be the day one starter at left guard. Opportunities typically do present themselves in the NFL. It's unfortunate, but it's the reality. A lot of guys do get hurt. So you have to have more than 5 capable offensive linemen. The 49ers can hope that Colby isn't needed sooner rather than later, but typically that ends up being the case in the NFL. If you're on that 53-man roster, you better be ready to go. And Colby's background as a really, really good run blocker at Iowa, I think can really help him be ready when that bell does ring for the 49ers. Now, the pass protection, I think he's going to still need to develop more polish there. But that's what this offseason, that's what training camp is for. That's what trial by fire during the regular season may be for. So we're all going to wait with bated breath to see when Connor Colby takes the field for the first time for the 49ers. Thank you to Wolf. He likes the article. You can support what we're doing by going and checking out the San Francisco Standard. The article he's talking about is right here. It is a big piece about the 49ers rookie class, all 18 of them. It is linked in the description. If you want the link of this to be in the chat section, I can go ahead and do that right now. It's going to go into the comment section. So that I think in the comment section, you guys can actually click on this. Look, it's covering my face right now. Don't want to keep it there for too long, but that's where it is. It is in the comment section. San Francisco Standard article is up. Steve says, how does Isaiah Neyor look? Can he replace Brandon Ayuk? No, well, he's not going to replace Brandon Ayuk right away. Ayuk is a really good receiver, right? He got hurt last year, came off of a lot of contract drama, wasn't playing his best. 49ers are saddled with that contract just because the injury guarantees at the moment for the next 2 seasons. They've got to make the best of the Ayuk situation. He's not going to be replaced by some guy who's coming in as an undrafted free agent. That said, Neyor looks fast. He looks explosive. He's got the long frame. He's at 6'4" and about 220 pounds. That's good enough to develop into a weapon at the NFL level. Developing into a Brandon Ayuk, it's one of the top wideouts in the game when he's healthy. It's a lot tougher. That's a lot more illogical ask. So no, he's not able to replace Brandon Ayuk, but he is looking good so far for the 49ers. He's impressed even George Kittle. The tight end room has been watching, saying this guy can really get off of the line of scrimmage. With Ayuk out for at least 6 games, from my perspective, who will be the 49ers wide receiver 1, 2, and 3? This is a good depth chart question for the screen right here. I just got to find the 90-man chart. Here we go. Boom, there it is. Let's get this open on the rest of the screen. Well, it just depends, on if Demarcus Robinson is suspended or not for the start of the season. If he isn't, then I think he could play the X, or Jawan Jennings would play the X, and Demarcus Robinson would play the Z. And I think Ricky Pearsall's your third receiver for the 49ers at the start of the season. A big Montana Grizz fan here. Junior Bergen is going to surprise a lot of folks. Eerily evasive. I believe you. You saw him return 8 punt returns for touchdowns over his college career at Montana. So I absolutely believe you. I do think that it's possible that he's going to be able to surprise a lot of people. He's going to have to take advantage of limited opportunities early on, though. They gave Brant Boyer, the special teams coordinator, a selection, which I think is really, really notable. Special teams cultural revolution happening within the walls of the 49ers building right now. So that selection was used on Junior Bergen, who had 8 punt return touchdowns in college. They have straight up said that this guy's a much better chance at making the team through special teams than he does as a receiver. So shorter player, 5'9", but sometimes you want that at the punt returner position. Sometimes that correlates with more elusiveness. So they're going to count on Junior Bergen to be someone who can potentially fill in at that punt return role, which is so important because things can go very wrong if you're a punt returner. 49ers fans don't need to hear this, but things can go very wrong if you're not set at punt returner. Trent Taylor, done for the season. The 49ers have put him on an injured reserve. He was their backup plan. It's no longer going to be their backup plan at punt returner. Junior Bergen is trying to become the primary plan for San Francisco, probably competing with the likes of Jacob Cowing, maybe even Ricky Pearsall, maybe some Jordan Watkins. We'll see if the 49ers put any of their new DBs back there on punt return. I see a lot of this, and then Neyor tries to catch the ball with his body. I made the video yesterday. You see a nice hand catch from Isaiah Neyor. I just think he's inconsistent. I think he's demonstrated every single one of the skills that you would want to see from a good receiver. I just don't think that he's put them out there consistently. There might have been some attitude issues at Texas. We talked to Bobby Burton, our friend who covers the Texas Longhorns, and he alluded to some of that. That might have led to the inconsistency. I don't think this is a lack of talent that is the danger with Isaiah Neyor. I just think that he's got to consistently display that talent. And if he does, well, George Kittle talking about him so highly only because he's impressed by Isaiah Neyor. I got to plug in this phone because, as you guys know, I'm in Europe. In fact, I'm in Europe means I'm 9 hours ahead of the West Coast. Give me a second. I got to reach down here. 9 hours ahead means that it's almost 7 p.m. We're going to an all you can eat steakhouse tonight. There's going to be a lot of red meat tonight. So I've got to be ready for that. And I have to be ready with my phone being charged before we head out into the town here in Prague. All right, I'm ready for more questions about all these rookies. If you don't have any, then I'm going to open up the depth chart and I'm just going to go through this manually. Jordan James, Corey Kiner, the guys who had tremendous ball security in college. James did not fumble a single time over his career at Oregon, which I think is absolutely astounding. I believe Kiner fumbled only once. And I'll go and check that stat. But the 49ers obviously went full on reliability with both of their running backs. Now, we can't see much more until I would say with the running backs, the preseason games, because they're not going to even be tackling live to the ground during training camp. The NFL generally, there may be a team or two that still does that. The 49ers don't do that. They haven't done that under Shanahan and Lynch. So you can't see how well a running back breaks tackles unless the defense is allowed to tackle him. The first time that's going to happen is in the preseason. But the last time that we saw live football from both Jordan James and Corey Kiner, boy, these guys are stable players. That's why Frank Gore loves these guys so much, especially Jordan James, where the measurables are very similar to Frank's coming out of college. Talked about Colby. I've talked a lot about Jordan Watkins. He's got an opportunity in that wide receiver room. I think the Watkins battle is a direct battle with Jacob Cowing because you got similar body types, smaller receivers, fast guys playing in that role for San Francisco. Cowing has added some weight, so that should be interesting. We've talked about the rookie defensive lineman. Nick Martin did a whole video on him the other day. He broke his thumb weightlifting. We haven't seen Marquise Siegel. He's a really fast safety, top 3 metrics athletically for safeties, somebody who should intrigue the 49ers and their fans, but he has yet to appear during training camp. We could talk about some of these guys who I have as UDFA projections as well. I'm going to check in with the questions here in the comment section. Any updates on Stone Blanton? Well, I promised you I'd talk about some of the UDFA guys. Stone got married, we know that. And then we saw Stone at OTAs and at minicamp. I think he's a tackling machine. My update on him is that I watched a ton of Stone Blanton's tape from Mississippi State. And Mississippi State fans have been emailing me saying, you're going to love this guy. He's just a gamer. He's a gamer. He gobbles up more tackles than you would think that he would, just given some of his explosiveness metrics. And he didn't get drafted for the reason of those explosiveness metrics. But sometimes playing football is playing football. And if you hit a certain threshold physically, you're going to be able to compete at the NFL level because beyond a certain point, it's all about mentality. And the 49ers think that Stone has that mentality to succeed at the NFL level. Now, if you look at the linebacker position, there's a lot of new names in there. Nick Martin's in there. Luke Gifford's in there. Chaz Surratt, who we know that Robert Saleh loves, the former college cornerback at the University of North Carolina. Don't forget Tatum Bethune. He has the benefit of having a year under his belt in the system. Curtis Robinson probably won't be available to start a training camp, but Jalen Graham will be. And then Stone Blanton fits in for the 49ers there. So I love watching tape, studying Stone Blanton. I can't wait to see him out there at camp because that whole linebacker room, I mean, you look at those guys, it seems like everybody's in a new number. I know it's not completely true, but 57 now goes to Luke Gifford, right? We're so used to Dre Greenlaw in the 57. So it's like Fred Warner and all of the new guys surrounding him. And they're going to be hoping that Warner is the rising tide that lifts all boats. Any update on Sebastian Valdez? Well, there's an opportunity coming for Sebastian Valdez. Here's why. If you look at the defensive line for the 49ers, look at the types of players that they have. Bosa's Bosa. He does everything, right? But CJ West, run stopping, one technique defensive tackle. Alfred Collins, run stopping, three technique defensive tackle, at least what he did best in college. Mykel Williams, run stopping defensive end for the 49ers. So they drafted three guys who are run stopping specialists. When you look at the rest of this roster, Elliott, run stopping specialist. Kevin Givens, he's versatile. They've kept him on the roster for a few years, but I really, would not consider Kevin Givens some kind of pass rushing aficionado. Same thing with Evan Anderson. He might be the best pass rushing defensive tackle that the 49ers have, but he's not great. So I look through all of this and I say, hey, they've got a lot of run stopping defensive tackles, especially since they added two of them through the NFL draft. What about a pass rushing specialist at defensive tackle? Because they let a couple of those guys go this offseason. They let Javon Hargrave go. They cut him. They let Malik Collins go. They cut him. So they've obviously shifted from run stop focus to from pass rush focus to run stop focus. But you can't leave the pass rushing behind entirely. That's where Sebastian Valdez may be able to make some hay. Undersized defensive tackle out of Washington. Can he at least audition himself to be that pass rushing defensive tackle that the 49ers might still be lacking up front? All right, I think we've gone through every single one of these guys, every single rookie. Now Valdez, two defensive backs because I've gone Neyor, Bergen, Kiner, two more DBs, and then I've gone through all 49ers rookies, all 18 of them. So the two DBs are both cornerbacks, Jacob Robinson out of BYU and Derek Canteen, who made the 49ers through the rookie minicamp tryout. Corner is interesting. I think it's going to be a free-for-all of a lot of players just battling it out. I talk about Trey Brown. I talk about Upton Stout. Don't forget Dallas Flowers, the veteran whom the 49ers added. Then don't forget Trey Avery, who'd been with this team. There were three Treys at one point. No more Trey Tomlinson. Now there's just Trey Brown and Trey Avery. But Jacob Robinson and Derek Canteen are going to throw their names into the ring at this cornerback battle as well. And we should absolutely keep an eye on them. I think Robinson probably needs to add a little bit of weight. I love the dog in him. I love the college tape. I think he needs to add at least 5 to 10 pounds of muscle and keep his explosiveness as he does it. And Derek Canteen, anybody who makes a good 53-man roster through a rookie minicamp, those tryouts, they don't yield a high success rate of players getting signed. So anybody that makes the team after one of those tryouts, I have a lot of respect for, probably has that dog in him as well. And I saw an interception for Derek Canteen over the spring. We'll see if he can continue forward moving into summer with training camp with some of that success. All right. That is a deep insider scouting report on all 18 49ers rookies. If you want to read more about these guys, go ahead and head to the San Francisco Standard. I think I go even deeper on the article. The article is available in the description of this video. This is what it looks like. So please do go check it out. Just the other day, I wrote very deeply as well about the 49ers finances, how they spend their cap dollars from Brock Purdy to Bryce Huff. You're going to have really, really innovative and cool graphics like this one, the pie chart of the 49ers spending division. And of course, a look at where they rank in terms of spending versus other teams. Complicated financial strategies for the 49ers, but seriously, check out the article. Mykel Williams and company. It's up there on the San Francisco Standard. We'll even include it here on the screen so you guys can check it out. All right. That's it. Everybody, thanks for watching. We don't stop. First live in a couple of weeks, even from Europe, we're doing the lives. A lot of exclusive content here traveling, so go ahead and check that out in the video section. Hit that sub button. We will talk to you very, very soon.